Yeah, you have to learn to diversify and don't become complacent. There's things that people are only buying online. You try to find the things that are not being sold online, or find something that's really just unique and different. But if you're in business, you're going to have those things come up. People are going to come up sometimes with a better mousetrap, and you've got to improve your mousetrap or build one or make one that's even better.
Welcome to the Bottled Up Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Allen, and I'm so excited to be able to share with you the incredible story of the Alman family and their boutique clothing store, S F Alman, located here on the Mississippi Gulf Coast since 1983. Through this episode, you'll hear their business origin story, their journey to success, and their commitment to customer service and satisfaction for the last 4 decades. Plus, I'm lucky enough to share some of my own experiences with the Almans as part of my second family and allowing to entertain myself and you as we take a nice trip down memory lane. So sit back and listen to this episode about a wonderful family-owned business and family that has succeeded despite the ever-changing retail and fashion industry landscape. Ferrell and Rose Alman, the owners of S F Alman. Thank you guys for coming on the show.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks
Glad
for
to.
having us.
Wait. Before I start, Andrew, hang on. I've got to have a taste of a Diet Pepsi. 1 second. Hang on. Sweet nectar of the gods, as your dad would say on many a fishing trip when he pulled out a nice ice cold Pepsi Cola.
Yes, sir. That's I appreciate the testament. You kind of had a little bit to do with soft drinks in your childhood as well, didn't you?
Oh, indeed. Yeah, I grew up in the soft drink business. My father and grandfather, my grandfather started the 7-Up Dr. Pepper bottling company back in the 30s. And then my dad came along and he just stepped right into the business. And they had 7-Up and Dr. Pepper. They bottled their own right there, had a bottling plant that back when you had glass bottles, and distributed from state line to state line. So, yeah, I grew up in the same business that you grew up in and that you are now working in. However, my dad sold his company to Brand X in Gulfport, Coca-Cola. Tip Milner bought him out, and he got out of the soft drink business. So sometimes I wish I was still in it, and you could probably tell me a lot of times that I'm glad I'm not in it.
Yeah, that like my dad used to say, you were a second generation SOB or son of a bottler.
That's great.
Okay. Yeah, I was, when you think about it, Andrew, you and I would have been third generation bottlers if I'd have stayed in it. So, yeah.
That's right.
And you know what? They say that in businesses that are family owned, it's that more third generation go out of business than any other, family type of business. And so you're in that third generation. But so far, Andrew, what I've seen, Rose and I both agree that I think you're going to make it, and you're doing a great job
You're doing a fabulous
with
job.
Allen Beverage. Sure are.
I really appreciate that. I think that it's one of those things that I didn't realize I was being groomed. I kind of just needed a place to go after school to stay out of trouble. And eventually I got to where I think it was the people I was working with, because a lot of those same people are still here. And I think that I kind of, you don't really fall in love with the work. You kind of fall in love with the people who you work with. And that's kind of what happened with me, is that I got to grow an affinity for the people who work here, and they watched me grow up. And so there's kind of a mutual respect of working together. And then I kind of just kept grinding, and here we are today, So it's I've been out of college since fall of 2009. So I wanted to ask you, when did you start S F Alman, number one, and number two, what made you want to get into the retail business? What itch did you have where you like, I want to get into retail, and especially in this area?
We opened in 1983, March of 1983, and celebrating 40 years, as a matter of fact, this year. And I grew up liking clothes, and then went off to college, went to Ole Miss for a couple of years and went to Mississippi College for a while, but got out before I graduated to work full time when I got a job offer at the Rogue, a men's clothing store in Jackson, Mississippi. So I worked there and just loved the business. I grew up here in Gulfport, so knew a lot of people, and a lot of those people that I knew, some I didn't know, that would drive to Jackson and would come in the Rogue to buy clothes. And, there were many, great stores, clothing stores on the coast, between, Gene Moore and Brent, and then the Saloms and the Hughes. And so there were, it wasn't like there wasn't a need for clothes, but I had people coming into the Rogue from Gulfport and the whole coast coming in to buy the brands we had that we sold at the Rogue. And they were brands that were not being sold on the coast from state line to state line. And so I said, well, if these people are coming up here to buy these lines and they're not finding them down on the coast, then why not move back home where I grew up and open up a clothing store, men's clothing, and see if I can make a go of it down here. At the time, people would come in and say you couldn't even buy a 100% cotton shirt, dress shirt on the coast anywhere, at least of any selection. And that's all we sold at the Rogue from Gitman Brothers, a great old shirt company that was made in the USA. So that led to looking into coming down here and met Rose. She was in retail in Jackson, worked with my sister Candy. And so Candy kind of got us together and we met and both have a love for retail and then a love for each other and got married and decided, why can't we, go back to Gulfport and open this on the coast? So the two of us just kind of started looking into doing it, and we took the bull by the horns and went after it. And luckily, 40 years later now, we are blessed and still have a clothing store and still meeting needs, men and women also on the coast with lines that you just can't find everywhere.
Yeah, I majored in merchandising at Mississippi State, so it's something I always wanted to do. So fortunately, we both ended up in the same career path, and when we met, that's kind of just a good match for what we wanted to do together.
Yeah, and it was a great combination because Rose has the merchandising part of it, and the for the women's side, and knows the women's business that we got into only after a year in selling men's clothing. We decided to get into women's. And of course, she's got the background, the smarts to do all the book work in the back, and I can just go out front and sell clothes. But she also comes out and sells. So yeah, it's been a good combination.
It sounds as if the weaknesses were picked up by the other person, kind of. And I think that it y'all together made the kind of the perfect pair as far as selling retail.
I think that's what you have to do, and you have to respect the other's strengths and weaknesses and kind of pick up on your own and let the other one do what they're best at.
Yeah, that I'm on the weaker side of that balance sheet, though, Andrew. So I give her the credit for being much stronger on that side of the balance sheet of the strengths. So,
well, someone's got to be able to do it.
That's right. Right.
And I think you lucked out with Miss Rose and the fact that she's able to handle that.
Amen, brother.
Okay, so you mentioned that it was kind of the inspiration was the brands that there was a demand for brands down here that people could not get everywhere else. And I've kind of outside looking in, I've kind of noticed that you tend to seek out when you go to market every year, you tend to kind of seek out really unique things to bring to people on the coast. Would you say that was kind of like your strength, is that you kind of have a feel or a pulse on, I think this is going to do well, I think people would appreciate this kind of clothing?
Yeah, you have to kind of, when you're going to start any business, you have to see if there's a need for it. Timing also, what's the timing? Is it good timing to do something? And so, yeah, that's kind of what we wanted to have was unique stuff that you don't find just anywhere. With the evolution of retail, you try to now have to have stuff that you don't find in big box stores or in outlet malls. And so, and I want people to walk in the store and go, wow, well, this is cool. I haven't seen this anywhere else. Or, as you know, I love gadgets and love trying to find things that are unique, that are useful. And I got to admit, a lot of it is stuff that I like a lot, not just things that would fulfill a need, but things that I like a lot. So, yeah, you have to really diversify and try to be different, offer something that nobody else has.
I like that you mentioned that it's things that you like, because I think I've been involved in a lot of tests in your products that you've acquired over the years.
Yes, you have. And then, things evolved too. When I years ago began to get more of a love of the outdoors. I fished all my life, but then wanted to get into more things north of I-10, so to speak, and hiking and backpacking and doing things like that. So I said, well, why not get some outdoor lines? And I knew about Patagonia, knew about North Face, pursued them, finally got both of them. And using the outdoor equipment and like backpacks from North Face, that's what led me into getting into backpacking and hiking. And I thought, well, there's a need for that. And then it exploded on the college scene with North Face and Patagonia.
Yes.
Business got better, and it just became a brand. And so again, that was timing. Timing was that we were able to pick up those lines and kind of have the exclusive on them for a while to make it unique. And it happened to be a great demand for it.
But you also have to branch out and take that chance of exploring it and see if it's going to work. So, and that's kind of a constant thing, I think, just by being here for 40 years is testing new things out all the time. And, networking with other stores in other areas of the country and other towns and see what's working for them. And you just have desire to stay fresh and bring new things to people. And
well, Miss Rose, let me ask you a question that you mentioned, networking with other stores. Is there a handful of stores that that you kind of have the same footprint or you sell the same things, something like that regionally or throughout the country? Is there a handful of stores that you kind of bounce information off of? Or maybe you buy the same line for that year and you say, hey, how are y'all doing? We're doing, and they say, we're doing really well with it. Well, what's the difference between what we're doing, that kind of thing? Do y'all network like that?
Definitely. As a matter of fact, I just got back from Dallas a couple of weeks ago and had an opportunity to visit with a lot more retailers, mainly in the state or outside the state, met new people. So it's great to find out, what line's working for you. I'm looking for this. Do you have a source for it? Every region is different, so everybody's not going to be able to sell the same thing or buy the same thing, but it presents you with new lines to look at.
Right.
It makes you feel better about what you're doing. Okay, well, I'm on the right track. I'm doing something right. Or
you don't feel alone.
And you make a relationship. And Ferrell, too, so much so with so many men's stores around the state. They really have a good connection and get together at market.
I view that y'all's business is a highly social business. I think that you would have a little bit of a hard time doing what y'all do if you didn't appreciate a good conversation or if you didn't enjoy interacting with other people. And could y'all elaborate a little bit on that? Because I know that is kind of like that's y'all's personalities.
Well, it is, a lot of that socializing, and we have third generation people coming in and shopping with us, their fathers or grandfathers shopped with us, and now we see them coming along. So but I want somebody to leave the store and whatever they bought, I want them to walk out going, wow, this is just the neatest thing. This is so cool. And so it's not just people we know, but other people from up and down the coast and really all over that come in. And that's part of selling is being social, because if I've got something that I think is really unique, be it our Holtzbrook hatchet, I want them to know that, hey, this hatchet is made in a forge that's been around since 1697.
Sweden, right?
Yeah. And so when they walk out, I have socialized with them, so to speak, but also have sold them something. And if they don't want to buy it, that's fine. I just love the ability to show somebody, hey, this is something really unique and different. And so, that's part of retail or any business, whether you're in the restaurant business or whatever. You have to be social to be able to, be proud of whatever product or service you're selling and be able to say, hey, here's what I'm offering to you. And when they leave, they go, wow, that was a great experience.
Well, one of the things that I think that you guys do really well is the products that y'all sell are going to last. This isn't going to be a situation of I'm going to buy this and in a year and a half, it's falling apart, or you sell things that they're going to put away and they're going to use literally a lifetime. So I think that's one of the things because I know right now I can go pull a t-shirt out that y'all gave me for my 16th birthday. And if on a good day, it might actually still fit. And it's just a North Face t-shirt. It should fall apart, but it still works.
Well, Andrew, there's an old adage in retail that I like to say, and that is the bitterness of poor quality remains long after the sweetness of low price is forgotten. So, you can buy cheap stuff, but it sometimes it'll eventually wear out. And, we're not all about just high end stuff. I'll find stuff that's a great value that'll be, less than something else that's more expensive in the store, but be able to offer something at a greater value at a lower price. So we're not all about just carrying the most expensive. We're about carrying the items that have the most quality, but also bring a lot of value to the person that's going to buy it.
And you're going to enjoy it and come back. We want you to come back in. It's not just a one-time sale that we're after. So, yeah, we want your business. We want your friendship. So we want you to see that we sell quality and come back and, again, the next time you need something.
Yeah, and if we don't, I like to say, if we don't have something, we'll try to order it for you. We'll try to find it. If I can't find it, well, then we might be able to have it made through our custom programs that we have. And if we can't have it made, well, then I just say, well, you probably don't need it.
Well, I think that's what makes you guys special. And that's one of the things that is special about y'all's store is that you're going to get that extra care. You're going to get that, it isn't one of those things of you're trying to turn units, trying to sell. Y'all are actually trying to outfit people in the right product that you think that they need. So,
and of course, the other component to this, you're really making me and Rose sound great, but what makes this click is having the people that work for us too that are able to do that. I mean, as David, our manager, without David, we wouldn't be able to take any time off or go see our grandchildren or anything like that, along with the other guys that are part-time that work for us and all the ladies. Rose can tell you about how great our ladies are.
Well, and most of the people that work for us, I mean, some have been there almost 40 years, as long as we've been there.
Yeah.
Some have been there 25 years, 30, 20, 10. I mean, it's amazing. We're like a family. So, I mean, we enjoy the socialness of that too with our employees and our customers. And, we just enjoy the interaction so much, which is probably one reason we have not pursued our website selling as much as we probably should have in this day and age. But, we just enjoy the personal contact more so than putting the time into selling online. So our emphasis is in our store and one-on-one with people.
Well, I think that if you have someone who has worked for you and you've worked with them for over 40 years or around 30 years, that's not the job, it's the people that they're working with. So they wouldn't continue to want to come back unless they were happy with the treatment and care, and the employer has a lot to do with that.
And you've got that same basis, as you alluded to earlier. You've got that same type family atmosphere there.
Oh, yeah.
Beverages. And, I have enjoyed listening to your previous podcast, and all of most of them are customers of yours that you've interviewed before, but every one of them just really give high praise, Andrew, for all of your employees and your route guys and everybody else. And just, you've created that same family atmosphere, and you've continued that same family atmosphere that your dad started and created there. So you and Grace and Wesley and all of you there,
Christy
and Gray. I've known Gray there. He has been with you a long time. We kind of grew up together, so we could speak from knowledge of who works there that it's everything Andrew says is true about that family atmosphere there at Allen Beverages.
Yeah, it's when it becomes more than just a job. It's kind of like, you're interested in people's family life. You're interested in, you're wanting them to succeed. You're proud when they have something go on. I remember I have some guys who over the last 3 or 4 years who basically have purchased homes, and have come to me about, hey, listen, I'm closing on a house, and you're excited for people that you're literally providing someone the means to create a family life that they've always wanted. So it's a real special thing.
That's what's great about living in America and capitalism. See, that it trickles down.
Yes. So especially when you care about the people you work with. So I wanted to kind of ask, when did you guys move into the house on Courthouse? Was that the house that you originally moved into?
When we first moved down here, Mom and Dad still at my grandmother's house, my mom's mother's house on Oak Avenue, right there by the junior high. Okay. And we moved in there.
Then we moved in the house where we are now in 1986.
86. The year you were born, Andrew.
3 weeks before our son Ferrell was born.
The end of May 86.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So he came to this house, and then we've been here ever since. And Olivia was born 4 years later, and Still in the same house.
Same house. It was built in the 1940s.
Same house that you grew up into.
Yes. I probably spent about 30% of my childhood in that house.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you haven't mentioned, I don't think, but yeah, our son Ferrell Jr. and Andrew grew up together and were pretty much best friends, I guess. They even roomed together at college. So here, just to be full disclosure here, that yes, Andrew and our son were best friends, and Andrew is almost like a second son to us.
Yep. And whenever my parents would go on trips, they would just dump me off at y'all's house for a week and a half.
Right.
And all right, now we're going to really get into the weeds now. And when he was dumped off, his mother, sweet Missy, was so admirable in getting y'all to eat healthy. But you come to our house where we did not eat healthy, and Andrew would raid all the cupboards of.
Oh yeah. Once I found
food.
out that the jig was up and there was candy cereals in the world, it was over with. I remember we would have to, Miss Rose, you would make sure that whenever we came home from school, we couldn't play until we did our homework. So Ferrell and I would have these discussions where I would be like, he would say, well, I mean, we have to do this. We have to do our homework. I was like, well, why don't you just do it? And then I'll copy it, and we've done our homework, and we just move on.
We can get outside and play.
Yeah, you want to play just as bad as I do.
Well, I guess it worked.
It did for a while until he started having I guess it was like a moral dilemma. And so he started saying, listen, you're not going to learn anything unless you start doing it yourself.
I think that went through college too, didn't it, Andrew?
He tried in college, but by that time, it took a girl I met up there to get me straight. So
they'll do that, won't they?
Yes, they will. And that pretty much was what got me out of Mississippi State.
Yep.
Well,
God bless
good for
Carmen. Yep.
Absolutely.
Indeed.
So, but yeah, I think a lot of fun moments, a lot of memories growing up at y'all's house. And, I remember before that y'all bought the piece of property behind y'all, with that was all woods back there.
Oh, yeah. It's
Do
great.
you remember that after y'all cleared it, you let Ferrell and I cut like a 55-foot tall pine tree down in the backyard?
We did.
It took us about 4 or 5 days.
Okay. We must have been at work.
Must have been when you said y'all were gonna cut a tree down. Y'all just pointed, and I thought maybe a little sapling out there or something like that. We were having to clear out.
It was pretty hefty, actually.
Yeah.
Good for y'all.
Yeah.
But back to the business a little bit. So when you guys you moved down in 83, you opened the store in 83. So you moved down to go back to the coast in 83. You moved into your house in 86. Over the span of the last 40 years, what do you think, as far as the business is concerned, what do you think has changed the most? And what do you think has stayed the same?
I think what has brought the biggest change, and there have been minor things like outlet malls and things like that, but the big elephant in the room in retail these days is the internet. The internet has taken that retail pie and just sliced it up so much more as another place for people to go shop. And the other thing too that's changed with the internet, and business is business in America, but we are competing with our vendors also online. So a lot of the lines that we carry, they also sell online and compete with us. So, that's one thing that's big. And then, of course, the other big dinosaur in the room that comes in, of course, is Amazon and how they sell. So, but, it just makes you sharper, makes you work harder. So, that's competition. And that's what's great about living in America. If a guy comes up with an idea, you can pursue it. And look what Bezos did with Amazon. Even though I don't like to shop on Amazon, I avoid it as much as I can because I'd rather shop local and spend my dollars local where I can. And so, yeah, that's probably the biggest thing is just competing with the internet. But if you're in business, you're going to have those things come up. People are going to come up sometimes with a better mousetrap, but you've got to improve your mousetrap or build one or make one that's even better.
Well, the internet sales is something that like you said, it's not going anywhere. I think that Amazon fed into the ease. I think creating it to where all I do is click a button and something shows up at my house two days later. is something. There's something to that. A lot of people like the ease of having to do it, especially if they don't want to go out into the world. But
Andrew, the people are still going to want to come in and touch it and feel it,
yes,
try
that's
it
what I was going
on.
to say.
And
Yep.
so another thing that we've seen change in our suit and sport coat business and dress trouser business has never been better, really, in 40 years almost, except back in the days when everybody wore suits. But in the last 15, 20 years, it's been really great the last 2 or 3 years, because a suit or a sport coat, you just can't buy online. You've got to have it fitted, or you want to see what the fabric looks like. And if you're going to spend anywhere from $300 to $1,000, $1,200, you want to be able to see it and try it on. So that's one example of how, you can't really, suits and sport coats and things like that, you really have to come into a store. I was even talking to Chuck Kelly. I said, Chuck Kelly, the hair cutter, I said, man, you're insulated from the internet, aren't you? I said, you can't go get a haircut on the internet. And he said, well, watch out. They might make machines that you can have at home that'll just stick on top of your head and cut your hairs, in 50 years from now or something. Yeah, you have to learn to diversify and don't become complacent. You don't want to come complacent. You always want to try to strive to improve and see what is selling. And in suits and sport coats, we try to expand that now, where if there's things that people are only buying online, you just try to find the things that are not being sold online, or find something that's really just unique and different that you just don't expect to see online.
Well, I personally don't order clothes online because I want to make sure that it fits. And I don't want to have return labels and then order another one, and then it comes in and then that doesn't fit. And now we're doing another return label. And it's better, like you said, to touch it and put it on. This feels good. I know what I'm getting, and go ahead and get it.
Yep. And again, if we don't have it, we'll try to get it for you also. So that's the other thing we can do.
Well, Miss Rose, is there any new lines that you're looking at in the women's section of SF Alman that's coming up, or is there anything happening over in your world?
Yeah, I'm always just looking for new lines that aren't necessarily in department stores or all over the internet. So just more specialty things that, especially on the ladies' side, I try not to order a lot of the same item in a whole lot of sizes because, our customer base is kind of small. You don't want to go to a party and see everybody else in the same outfit you have on. So
that's interesting.
Trying to keep things a little more selective, and so you're not seeing yourself everywhere. We exploring some new sneakers, a big business right now. Everybody's wearing sneakers everywhere, so we've got some new lines coming in sneakers for sure that I just found. And
always looking for that next big thing. If you look back, Andrew, on things that really revolutionized things, Patagonia did with fleece.
Yes,
they kind of changed the sweater business. Before it was a wool sweater. If you want to stay warm, you wore a sweater. And then they came along with fleece, and Yvon Chouinard at Patagonia developed a way with the people up Malden Mills to create something from recycled soda bottles, that made it better. And so, fleece was king with Patagonia and North Face, all these lines that were huge. And there's another great story about fleece and how things change, but are sometimes new to people. We were just selling fleece, out the door, so many units from Patagonia and North Face back in the day in the late 80s, early 90s. And North Face came out with a wool sweater. And so we put the wool sweater up on the front table with the fleece, and these young college guys would come in and go pick up the wool sweater and go, wow, what is this? And we're like, oh, it's a wool sweater. Really? When did they come out with this? I said, oh, and then it hit me. It's like, oh yeah, there's some young people that grew up with fleece that have never even seen a wool sweater before.
So now it comes back.
So I don't see anything like fleece coming around. Then you had Crocs, Crocs that were huge, they kind of revolutionized the footwear business. And so we're always trying to stay a step ahead, literally be with footwear or with clothing, with things that are like, all right, this is the next trend. And we try to get on it early, but then sometimes we get on something early that's really unique and different. And then pretty soon when they go national and go big time, well, then sometimes they'll forget about the little retailer and go into big boxes and things like that. So that's why we always have to try to look for that next thing to be different and unique.
Explain to people exactly how it works whenever you go to market and you go to kind of plan. How early are you planning your next year?
Well, we've just pretty much put all of fall 23 to bed, with fall being that it'll start delivery as early as like August all the way through end of December. So that's kind of our fall season. And so you would go in January. So you're going to buy 6 to 8 months out before the season starts is when you will go. So for spring 24, we'll go in July and start buying. And some of my bigger lines, we have to have it in June, orders
Wow.
in June to be able to get it starting in February. So, and you look at all the intricacies of manufacturing, what they have to go through, especially during COVID. It was something to see because, if you're manufacturing something, you've got to depend on the guy that makes the buttons to make sure he gets the buttons to the factory to be
Right.
able to sew onto the shirt or the jacket or whatever. So that's one business I would not want to be in, is the manufacturing business like that, and having to be dependent on all these people to supply things to you. I guess the only thing worse are all those restaurant guys I've heard you interview, and the tough time they have with not only
It's
employees, but with getting their product and the
yes.
skyrocketing prices they have. So God bless those restaurateurs for business they're having to do and deal with.
Yeah, we definitely saw, I know that y'all saw it, but we definitely saw some of that. And the problem with what we had is the manufacturing of soft drinks has to be done in a clean room. And if people are on the line, and if someone like 2 years ago, 2020, 21, if someone had COVID, they shut the entire factory down. So
Wow.
they're 7 days behind,
Yeah.
So
Amazing. Yeah, let me take you back on a memory that just popped in my head. Speaking of a clean room and the bottling business and me growing up in it, I recall when they bottled 7 Up, the only really room back then was upstairs where they had the big, huge stainless steel vats where they mixed all the syrup up for the 7 Up, and it was air conditioned. Other than the office or something, you could sneak up there and get up there where they had to keep it air conditioned for those vats of that syrup. And I remember them pouring 50-pound bags of sugar into the vats to make up the 7 Up
goodness.
back before you had diet. And so, but anyway, just a great memory of that in the bottling business.
Well, Mr. Ferrell, I know that working in the vending department when I started as a kid, there was only two places in the vending department that was air conditioned, and that was my boss's office and the next door office. So I imagine if you were working, you probably tried to keep that vat room pretty clean.
Oh yeah, indeed. Like I said, it was upstairs. Of course, it was up high because then the syrup flowed down into the bottling machine. But yeah, that was
Right.
before your time, before you came into the bottling business, and it was kind of ending when your dad was getting into it. I think with everybody bottling, and it went to regional distribution. So yeah, no more air conditioned rooms you could sneak away to.
We used to go in Andre Davis's office and ask him about the Vietnam War, and then we'd sit in there for 15 minutes, trying to just get cool, and then he'd realize what we're doing. He's like, I know what y'all are doing.
Oh yeah, I spent many a day as a kid out in that hot warehouse sorting bottles back when you had the real glass bottles, and so you had to separate because they would all come in mixed up, 7 Up, Dr Pepper, Grapette, all these
Right.
different bottles. So you had to sort them by hand. They didn't have a machine to do it back then, and oh yeah, that was hot sitting out there doing that. But there were always characters in there that worked for Dad. One of them called Dragline, and he and I would get out there and sort bottles. And boy, I learned a whole lot, as you did too, probably.
Oh yeah, those are the best. Those are the best guys.
All those men that beyond your family that influenced you growing up, and yeah, it was great.
Yeah, it's an interesting business. I was probably the youngest guy in the room a lot.
Uh-huh.
Well, you guys are planning for spring of 24. You guys are planning this summer. So do you have a set place where you go? Are there set markets that you go to every year? Are there ones that you try new every year?
Yeah, there's well, for me, Dallas is good because it's convenient and there are a lot of vendors there. If a date conflict comes up with going to that Dallas market, I'll go to Chicago. New York is not as big a market as it used to be, at least for my business. And so I can usually get it done there. And then outdoor shows also. There's been a lot of change in the venues with that over the last few years, but I would go to Salt Lake City for the outdoor retailer show twice a year. So there would be outdoor shows twice a year and the men's clothing shows twice a year. And then Rose would go to the lady shows because they would not coincide. You just couldn't get that many people in one place combining men's and women. So there's separate dates for lady shows. And so she'll go twice a year for clothing in Dallas, and then also Atlanta for gifts. Gift business is huge for us, also selling a lot of gifts. As we talked about earlier, our unique things we try to have. Well, we find most of those. We find some at the men's and ladies markets, but the Atlanta gift show is a big place and a big resource for us to go to for gifts and things.
Well, what would you say y'all's top 5 brands would be that you sell?
Well, in men's, Peter Millar is huge for us. And then the guy that started Peter Millar sold it and then was hired by another company called Johnny O out of California is big for us. And then, Patagonia North Face is good, but Filson also is another really
Filson makes
brand
good stuff.
Yeah.
Filson.
Free Fly also, which does men's and ladies.
Yeah, they're out of North Carolina.
It's a good line. And a lot of our companies do make men's and ladies, and that's kind of how we started getting into the ladies business to start with, because we opened as a men's store. But back then, there were a lot of companies that did men's and ladies clothing. So that's kind of how we started adding ladies a little bit at a time. And we still have a lot of those. There's not as many around as there used to be. Yeah, Free Fly is one of them. Task, Patagonia, North Face, they're all do men's and ladies. So it crosses over.
I think that's interesting. So that's basically the reason why you started getting into ladies. Well, not only just because you're adding 50% more customers, but you're have the convenience of ordering from the same company.
Yeah, that's kind of how we got into the women's business back after we had been open not quite a year. And we used to sell a shirt made up outside of Jackson, Mississippi, Norman Shirt Makers. And the Thomas family, who are related to the Saloms here on the coast too, they're all family. But they manufactured a men's dress shirt and sports shirt called Norman Shirt Makers. And back then in the 80s, Madras plaid was huge. Madras is a plaid that's dyed with these dyes that will actually fade as you wash it. So it was a process started in India, and Madras was just a huge thing that we would sell a lot of men's shirts. Short sleeve, we couldn't get enough short sleeve plaid Madras shirts. Well, they started to sell dresses, shirt dresses. Just take that men's shirt and lengthen it, long enough for a lady to put on and wear as a dress. And so Rose ordered a few of those, and we put them on a brass hat rack. And that's how she started, with about a dozen dresses from Norman Shirt Makers, and it grew from there.
And of course, women are always coming in shopping for their husbands too. So we were able to, entice them into some of the ladies' things. So it just grew, but still predominantly, our main focus was on men's, and it still probably is, but we try to have a little something for everybody. Even a few youth size.
Yeah, because they're all, just as they do men's and women's, a lot of them are doing youth things, that we do, from Free Fly to Patagonia to AFCO. AFCO is another, brand that's great, especially locally here with fishing stuff and everything. So yeah, we try to meet the needs of what people want. Retail's real easy, Andrew. You figure out what people want to buy and you sell it to them.
I'm pretty sure that you're
He's been real, yeah.
Yeah. I've had
easy.
We've always said if it was easy, everybody would be doing
it.
So,
and sometimes it seems like a lot of them are. So,
well, I think it's funny that Ferrell always told me that y'all told him never get into retail, and
yeah,
and he did it. He got into it,
and luckily he had that lawyer background too to get back into lawyering now. So,
yep.
Yeah, so if anybody's starting a business out there and you're going to need a trademark, you can call our son. He'll put it. And it brought up something else too when I was thinking about what you wanted to ask. If people are going to start, you need to get a good CPA, accountant, and a good lawyer. And if you are, if you're going to create something, you're going to need a trademark or something like that. But that's one thing, you do need if you're going to start a business. Make sure that you have good advice and a good banker too. When we started, we went through the SBA to get a loan, and they give you that 1.5 inch stack of forms you have to fill out for the SBA back then, and going through the bank. And luckily we got it all filled out and all turned in, and we showed them that yes, we've got a business plan, and luckily we could come up with some collateral to be able to back it up. But we showed them we had a business plan and got with a good lawyer and an accountant. Luckily, ours was both. And if you're going to start something, make sure that you've got all those behind the scene things like that taken care of.
I think that's great advice because a lot of people wouldn't even think of or realize that they needed that, especially the attorney part. A lot of people think that if I just have enough money, I can walk into a bank and they'll give me whatever I want.
And but you would just want to make sure that you get a good one, that you get a good relationship with.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the conversation. I just want to say that I really appreciate y'all coming on the podcast. I appreciate you helping raise me as a child. And I think you are both some of the best people I've ever met, and I appreciate you.
We appreciate you too.
Thank you, Andrew. That means a lot coming from you, and we love you too, and are very, very proud of you. And your
Thank
dad,
you.
as your dad would be proud of you, as your mom is too. Yeah, you just keep doing what you're doing.
Oh, well, I did not realize that this year was y'all's 40 years. Are y'all planning on doing something for your 40 years?
We are.
We're working on it. It's just a matter of what are we going to come up with that's really going to be special and have a nice bang to it. So, but
if there's any way I can help, I'd like to try to help at least.
Okay. All right.
Thanks.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, so if someone wanted to come to SF Alman and had never been before, how do they find SF Alman?
We're on Courthouse Road, and we're at 452 Courthouse Road, Suite A, technically. But if you put in 452 Courthouse Road, that should bring you right there to us. We're just about a little less than a mile north of Highway 90. So when you turn off of Highway 90, which the little shrimp signs they have on the lights down on Highway 90, we're number 25. The little shrimp sign on the light post there, or the stoplight post, is 25. That's Courthouse Road. And so you come north over the railroad tracks, and we're on the right just before you get to the very first traffic light north of Highway 90. And we sit on the right side in Courthouse Quarter, right in the very back.
And Miss Rose, I know that y'all, social media wise, y'all do Facebook and Instagram. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes, we do. We try to do it a couple of times a day, and we do try to send out emails whenever we like are starting a sale or have a trunk show, or so we invite people to give us their email, because that's for us the best advertisement is our email and social media, Instagram and Facebook. So just try to keep everybody in tune to what's coming in, and we love when people come in almost every day and say, "Oh, I saw this on your Facebook. Where's this?" So it's a great way to let everybody know daily what's coming in.
Andrew, that's one of the strengths we were talking about earlier.
Right.
That's her strength, is being able to do that consistently every day, taking pictures, every day.
I see it.
To be able to post.
I see it. So I know that she's doing a good job. I see it.
So, yeah. And of course, that's another one of those things that has changed, how you advertise, these days is through Instagram and Facebook and those things like that. So it definitely helps us.
Well, I would highly recommend, if anybody has any outdoor clothing, casual, fancy, any kind of need for anything like that, gadgets, go ahead and dip in and say hey to Mr. Ferrell and Miss Rose at SF Alman, and their staff is wonderful. They've been around for 40 years for a reason. You won't regret your purchase there. You won't. We appreciate everybody's business from state line to state line.
We appreciate it.
I want to thank Ferrell and Rose Alman of SF Alman for joining us on the show and sharing their story, business insights, and their extraordinary lives. It's inspiring to see a family-run business that has stood the test of time and continues to provide high-quality products to its customers. We wish them all the best as they continue to grow and serve our community in their 40th year in business. And on a personal note, I'd like to thank Rose and Ferrell for being on the show. I would also like to thank them for allowing me to be their adopted third child. And watching them all those years in my youth, I learned so much about hard work, dedication, and customer attention. The Almans' influence on me is an inspiration and foundation of where I am today and where I hopefully will be moving forward. So again, thanks for listening. And until next time, take a moment to go visit a local mom and pop or family-owned business, because they are the backbone that makes our community and the Gulf Coast so special. Thanks for listening to the Bottled Up Podcast. Want us to deliver this show into your email inbox as they drop? Want to tell us about how you like the show? Or you want to tell us about a Gulf Coast restaurant or bar you would like us to spotlight in upcoming episodes? Email Morgan at mwheeler, WHEELER, at abevinc.com. That's ABEVINC.com. Want to know more about Allen Beverages and how we work with our clients, partners, and vendors? Check out allenbeverages.com. This show was edited and produced by Johnny Gwynn and Deep Fried Studios.